Hi, everyone. I'm Rena Nine, and thank you for joining us. President Trump is expected to be acquitted later today in the impeachment trial. Ahead of that, he addressed Congress in a State of the Union speech last night. The president gave a glowing review of his 3 years in office. He touted his administration for progress made on foreign policy, trade, and the economy, making his case for re-election.
The vision I will lay out this evening demonstrates how we are building the world's most prosperous and inclusive society. In just 3 short years, we have shattered the mentality of American decline. In just 3 years of my administration, 3.5 million people, working age people, have joined the workforce. We are doing numbers that no one would have thought possible just 3 years ago. Likewise, we are restoring our nation's manufacturing might. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Well, the president did not mention impeachment in his address, but tensions with the Democrats who greenlit his impeachment were visible from start to finish. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi omitted the customary language about it being a high privilege and distinct honor to introduce the president. Mr. Trump then handed her a copy of his speech, but when Pelosi extended her hand, he refused to shake it. After the president concluded his address, Pelosi took her copy of the speech, tore it in half, and threw the pieces on the table in front of her. For more on all this, I want to bring in Ben Tracy and Molly Hooper. Ben's a CBS News White House correspondent. Molly, a CBSN political contributor. Ben, I'm curious what the buzz is. You know, after the State of the Union, Pelosi was asked about her decision to rip up that speech. Here's what she said.
I tore it up. I'm just trying to find one page.
Why did you rip the speech up, Madam Speaker?
It was the courteous thing to do, considering.
Curious what the White House is saying, Ben.
Well, you don't have to read between the lines too much there to know what she was saying. This was a relationship that was already on life support before this speech began, and I think at this point we just have to assume it's completely non-existent. The response from the White House has largely been to call Nancy Pelosi petty, to say what she did was inappropriate and beneath the dignity of the event. But what we should keep in mind here is the context. These two have not spoken to each other since October. The president just made a big deal of signing the USMCA trade deal here at the White House. He did not invite the speaker. That is a trade deal, a bipartisan success that would not have happened without her. So there is no relationship here to speak of between the two of them. And what we learned last night is they no longer are even willing to fake the pleasantries of their positions. They can't shake hands. You see her tearing up his speech. So this is all but dead at this point.
Molly, I'm curious, what are folks, particularly Democrats, saying? Are they supportive of Nancy Pelosi's moment there, ripping up the speech?
I think it depends on which Democrats you ask, because if you look at what happened afterwards, the Democratic governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, went on to give her remarks, but really the press and people who had been following State of the Union kept focusing on that action that Nancy Pelosi took, ripping up the speech. And it's unclear whether that undercut the message that Democrats wanted to convey in putting Whitmer up as the response to the president. But in listening to Democrats today, it's clear that they were not happy with what the president said. Chuck Schumer called the speech demagogic, undignified, and he said that instead of a dignified president, we had some combination of a pep rally, a reality show host, and a carnival barker.
Wow.
I mean, so they're not pulling any punches. And during the speech, a number of House Democrats actually got up and left. They walked out on the speech, on the president, while he was giving it.
In the middle of the speech.
In the middle of the speech. And so I think going into this, there was a lot of tension. And, but Donald Trump really knew how to push the right buttons to get them to react.
And it looks like Nancy Pelosi's pushing back. And theatrics aside, I'm concerned about the American people at this point. Healthcare, you look at the debt.
Right.
Does this mean after last night, Americans can forget about any sort of bipartisan efforts on Capitol Hill?
Actually, and that's the one thing that was interesting about this speech. The president was pretty good at weaving in areas of bipartisanship with, of course, the most partisan hot button issues there are. But we did see bipartisan applause when he mentioned Chuck Grassley's prescription drug bill that's over in the Senate side that may well get some momentum, in the next few months. That could be a bipartisan area of agreement. Infrastructure is always popular, but how to pay for it is never agreed upon. But still, I think there were some areas, education, where Congress and the president could work together, but really it's not going to be Nancy Pelosi who's making those deals. It's going to be the committee chairman, as we saw with the USMCA, with the trade deal. Richie Neal, who is the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Democrat from Massachusetts, was the one leading that charge. I mean, it's pretty hard to go from having your last conversation with the president in October to signing a bipartisan trade agreement, in the end of December without talking to the Speaker of the House. So I think that there will be some movement on Capitol Hill, but it's unclear what role Nancy Pelosi will play in all of it.
Ben, I'm curious, we're hours away from what's expected to be acquittal for the president in his Senate impeachment trial. What's the strategy? Big victory lap later tonight?
Well, we're still waiting to hear from the White House if the president intends to address the nation. We've been told all along, and they've really made a point of not wanting to get ahead of the vote. They want to make sure this vote happens, that he is officially acquitted, and then they'll figure out how he's going to respond. But we have been told that the president will want to respond in some fashion. I think it would be a minor miracle if he decides not to talk. Clearly, the president has some pent-up anger, some things to get off his chest. He refrained from doing so last night. The big question was, would he mention the I word, impeachment, during his speech? And he did not. He stayed very much on script in terms of talking about what he views as his successes. And we've been told he did that partly because he has another set of remarks, are the words that he used, that he might deliver today. So we will just kind of wait and see what happens after 4 o'clock when that big vote takes place.
I lost a 10-cent bet. Somebody said they didn't think that the president would be able to hold it. And I said, maybe he will. Might surprise you.
Well, exactly. And I mean, given all of the sort of spectacular antics, I mean, reuniting the wife with the husband who was in the military and giving the scholarship to the little girl, and then the Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, he had it all. Whoever produced that speech, that is something that I have heard on Capitol Hill, people talking about.
Impressed at
how coordinated it was and how on message for Donald Trump it was.
Going forward, Molly, how are Democrats going to move forward at this point and strategize, particularly because whether you like it or not, the economy is doing well for this president, and a lot of people vote with their pocketbooks.
Right, and it's really in those key states, those purple states like Ohio, Michigan, which is one of the reasons why Democrats chose the governor to give the response last night, where Democrats really need to focus their attention, because what the argument that some Democrats are making from Rust Belt states like Tim Ryan in Ohio, who represents a major manufacturing area, said, what Donald Trump said in that speech last night just isn't true. Manufacturers are going out of business. There are a lot of people unemployed, or what they are is underemployed. People may have a job, but the wages are just not keeping current with the cost of living. And that's an argument Democrats are going to try to make, in addition to which they want to hit on health care, because they say health care is not affordable, contrary to what the president proclaimed last night. And that's a matter that really impacts people, their pocketbooks. And it's one of the issues that voters are paying attention to, intensely this election cycle.
All right. I want to thank you both. It was a little upsetting to watch last night. And the State of the Union, when it comes to bipartisanship, non-existent at this point.
It was wild.
It was
I'll
crazy.
give it that.
All right. Ben Tracy, Molly Hooper.